Hello and welcome to Redshirt Cinema Club, a weekly podcast about falling in love with Star Trek. This week, we've reached the end of our Star Trek, but only the beginning of our podcast journey. Join us as we rank all the Star Trek movies, quiz Rob about his Star Trek knowledge, read out some of your emails, and find out what's next for our podcast. Hello and welcome back to Redshirt Cinema Club. My name is David Jackson, your captain now and forever. Don't forget it.
Clinging on.
Joined today,
overturning the Constitution,
as always, by Lieutenant Nathan Dyson.
Yeah, sure.
And Ensign Rob Pearson.
Hello.
And welcome to our second ever bonus episode. We really wanted to kind of wrap things up because we've just finished our massive undertaking, which was to watch all of the Star Trek movies in chronological order in a vain attempt. Really, it was just an attempt to make a podcast, which I think we've succeeded in.
We definitely we've done that.
Secondary hope was to make Rob a Star Trek fan, which we accidentally did as well.
Nailed.
And I think there's lots to talk about. Obviously, we've talked about each movie individually, but we've been on quite a journey, so we wanted to take some time today to take a look at that journey. We're also going to test Rob's Star Trek knowledge with a little bit more of a quiz.
Oh, God.
A reprise of episode 1 all those months ago.
Yes.
We've got some mail from our lovely listeners,
Indeed.
which Nath is going to talk to us about. And also, we're going to take a look forward because we're not done. We've enjoyed this way too much. We've enjoyed watching movies together, talking about them, and enjoyed everybody enjoying the podcast.
Yeah.
So we've got plans for the future, which we're going to share with you.
Got exciting plans, which we're going to go through at the end of this episode.
We are. But
we're
first,
like Shatner sitting back in the captain's seat.
Exactly.
We're not
One
done yet.
last time, Admiral. But first, I really wanted just to take a little bit of a look back at the process, not even the film so much as just what we've been through, because I think each of us probably had expectations about what this would be like, how we'd feel at the end, and I think there's definitely some value in kind of looking over that. And I wanted to start, Rob, by asking you just what your preconception of Star Trek was before doing this, and how doing this has challenged, if it has challenged at all, your preconception of Star Trek.
I guess my preconception would have been that we would see a little bit more. I mean, I guess that's the nature of the episodic nature of TV, is that you can dip in and out of various sci-fi ideas. I thought we'd be seeing more sci-fi concepts, when really I think when they get to the movies, it's about what dramatic things can we do with this iconic group of characters. Let's just have a big ticket idea, a big villain that they're fighting. So I guess the movies are quite different to the TV show in that respect. So sometimes I think the movie that was most like what I thought Star Trek was going to be was ironically the very first one, the motion picture, just a big sci-fi 2001 inspired voyage into the unknown in space, and I thought that was quite cool. I really enjoyed it, and then gradually things changed, and we got a movie with humpback whales being beamed onto the ship and then being time traveled through the sun.
That's a hell of a sci-fi.
But yeah, I think, and towards the end of it, like I did not think I was going to become a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
Until I realised it just quite late on.
What do you think did it?
It was the Abrams movies and me realising.
But then, what was it that you had become a fan? What had you attached yourself to that? Then you had.
It was that original crew for sure, and I think there was another moment that I didn't touch upon in the last episode, which I wish I had done, which was right towards the very end when Spock looks at the photograph of that original crew.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like
a pang.
Yeah, a pang, or like a warm sense
affinity.
of familiarity and affinity with that original crew that I hadn't realised had developed in me. And I just looked at them and I thought, yeah, they're great, aren't they? And despite the fact that those 6 movies with the original crew were inconsistent in their quality. They didn't always achieve the things that they set out to do, but you cannot deny that that crew, and especially the main 3, there's like there's a chemistry and a spark there that quite clearly Abrams movies were trying to recapture. They're trying to chase, and ultimately I thought they were unsuccessful. I think they did a lot of things very, very well. Yeah. Quite clearly, Abrams is an accomplished filmmaker. All of the actors in those films are very accomplished. The performances are pretty good. The effects are amazing. The action set pieces are great.
Better films.
They are better films. Yeah, but there's something And it's just that rare thing. Sometimes, and you can't even explain it, sometimes a group of people will come together, a group of characters, for whatever reason. And it's that same thing that I think Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia have. That trio there. I don't know why they're better than all the others, but they just are.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because, they're the first ones I saw, or it was a moment of time in my particular life where I just felt I was open to that kind of connection with these characters. But when I saw Spock, Zachary Quinto's Spock, looking at that photo of the original crew, I was just like, oh man, I do love those guys. Even though the 6 films I've seen them in weren't always the greatest, but obviously an essence of Star Trek, an essence of their characters had carried over into those films.
Yeah.
And
do you know, I'm not even, the more we think about it, I think that those movies are even separate to the original series. I think you have to go through the original series and you have to have those personalities and whatever happened to them in the 70s while they were waiting to come back. And then you get those movies. But the movies are, again, a slightly different breed. So we've had loads of correspondence and lots of discussions about, the best Trek is on TV. And I think that's true. And is it crazy to try and become a fan of like the original series only through the movies? But actually, part of me, I think the answer is yes. But I also think that there is something completely separate about those films, that they are, because they're all older, and when they accept that and ease into that after the first film, there's a really unique sense of these older charismatic people going back and doing, and I think it isn't like a young, sexy Hollywood movie full of action. And I think that maybe that's specifically what you've become a fan of. And I just want to say, I think it is different to the original series. I think the seeds of it are there, the space seed, but it is different.
Well, yeah, we've joked before about this being really, an excuse to make a podcast rather than an actual legitimate attempt to make Rob a Star Trek fan. And I think going through this process has actually challenged my preconception of Star Trek, or in as much as I thought Rob would really like Star Trek, I still think Rob would really like Star Trek. When I say that, I think I am talking about the TV shows, and the thing I think he would like about it is all the interesting sci-fi ideas that they explore. And I had forgotten that that's not a big part of these movies, really, and I came to realize quite quickly that these are movies about people, and it's the people that make the movies work and good, and that's partly maybe why the original series of movies with the original cast are perhaps, I don't know, I certainly feel the most warmly towards them as well. I think it's because the cast has a real human connection. Not that they're all mates or anything, but they're so good. They've inhabited those characters so long.
Yeah.
And I do think that the Next Generation cast also have a real warmth amongst them.
Yeah.
I do think that's all lost in the Abrams movies because those people have been brought together. They haven't spent any...
Although apparently they do get on very well.
I'm sure they do. But it's like you can see this sort of degradation in... I don't know. The humanity's lost a little bit.
I do think it's also the Marvel, not trick, but it's that first Avengers movie. You take the star power of people who were on the screen, and you put them together, and then it becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And just to say, I do think that you accrue that kind of familiarity and attachment the longer people are in a place, and acting and performing a role. And I think that's what the new movies lose out on. Just really quickly on your point, Rob, just about the films are these kind of snapshots that have to have a big idea. Like, as you were saying it, I kind of realized that's the reason we've seen, like, is someone going to die, or shall we crash the ship? And we just see it over and over again. What are the big things we can do? And I think those are the big things. I wanted to ask, and this is really for Dave, because I think you've already answered, but who was your favorite? We've seen 3 crews, essentially. Who was your favorite crew?
My favorite movie crew is definitely the original cast. It's been interesting as well, the context of these movies.
What do you mean in movie? Because they're all in movies. So do you mean when I am watching movies, I prefer...
I mean, when we're just talking about Star Trek as movies,
yeah.
My favorite cast is from the original series. My favorite cast in the TV show is the Next Generation cast. I think they're great.
Right.
I don't think they have a good run in the movies. Like, I don't think we see them... I don't think their characters are quite right in a lot of those movies. So I feel like they're the people I know, but they're not quite inhabiting roles I quite understand.
It's the Data and Picard show.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't quite work for me. But just in the movies alone, my favourite cast is definitely the original cast. Rob I think nailed it with Beyond, seeing that photo of them all together. One of the great things about doing this has been the context that we've had. I've never watched the movies in order, and I've certainly never watched them all in order, and had the context of what's going on in the world and what's going on in cinema, what's going on making these movies. And it's been interesting having that, and I think that made, like, I've always found The Undiscovered Country to be one of my favourite Star Trek movies, if not my favourite. And I think a lot of it is because I've just find the end so powerful, and especially
signing,
this time.
the signatures.
I don't know how you guys, I don't think we talked about it in the actual episode. I meant to ask, like, how you found the signatures, because I just found it, like, super moving. I was like, wow, these characters that I've watched for these 6 movies, and they've done, you know, the original series, they started this whole thing, Star Trek, and they're kind of signing off for the last time. It's quite, you know, it's quite gratuitous in one way. If you're not a fan, it's a bit like, get over yourselves. But for me, a fan, I was like, oh man, this is really a lot. And they, you know, the contrived shot at the end of them all on the bridge of the Enterprise, I was living for it. I'm just like, nom 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 nom, give me that. I love this. And it, I think that the context of the whole thing, like, was really powerful. It made me like movies that I didn't previously think I enjoyed that much. And also it was interesting to me that there were movies I thought I liked that I really didn't much this time.
I don't know and it's hard to know whether that's the passing of time or just watching them in order. But I would say on my favourite, I've always been a huge TNG fan rather than the original series. I have the same warmth to that crew. Having given those movies, I'd watched, I think, all of them, but maybe half watched a couple of those movies. And I'd never seen them in order, and that, like, I was a little bit muddled about what happened in what films and all of that. So watching them all stretched out, it's so funny, and I think that Generations is really where I realised it, that I was so ready for the TNG crew to come along, and I was enjoying watching the old crew in that movie much more than I was enjoying watching the Next Generation crew. And so I'm really, to me, it's kind of like that's the difficulty in thinking of Star Trek as all one thing. Actually, kind of, it's an interesting thing that they're kind of putting together. There's like an underlying DNA, I think, but they're very different shows and ideas and concepts, and there's a different feel to it. And I don't think you get personalities like Shatner and Nimoy in that new crew, really. You don't have, I'm not sure you have personalities that outlandish. Maybe they're just not coming through in the same way. I'm not sure. But I think of the TNG crew as more of a tight-knit unit that's really seems to have preserved a friendship through the years. And I really I enjoy that. I think that being part of fandom these days is watching clips on YouTube and listening to people on podcasts. And I like that there's a sense that they all went through this thing which they enjoy together. But I also think, having gone through and then looking at the context, that with the continuity behind the scenes, I now much more see this second era of Star Trek around the Next Generation, from that kind of mid-80s until they cancelled Enterprise, as one block of the same kind of creative minds creating Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and I hadn't thought of Enterprise in the same way at all, but they do. So that was interesting as well. All of which is to say, I really like both crews a lot. I think they mix like oil and water, but I like them. I like oil and water, it turns out, for different reasons.
It made me sad as well. The promise of the Abrams movies. I think I hadn't really thought about it, Nath, but you nailed it. Just they found this actually pretty smart way to completely wipe the slate clean, and then just kind of rewrote everything that had been written, and it seems like a big opportunity lost. I think that cast is pretty good. I think they're really good. Like, we obviously had some issues with Kirk. Chris Pine's Kirk, but I think that's how it's written, not his performance. I don't think he's a bad Kirk. I just think that he was written to be, a Kirk, a different kind of Kirk.
Rob's point about the lines that were good at the end of Beyond.
Yes.
Really, I was like, yes, I did like that. And it was, maybe it was because it partly is a scene where there wasn't 50 things happening at once. It was just two people talking genuinely to each other.
Rob, I ask you this, and there's honestly no like weight behind this question, but has it made you at all interested or tempted to watch any more Star Trek outside of the films, or are you comfortable of being a fan just with and enjoying the movies? I'm trekked out.
I'm comfortable, but I would consider it. It's whether I have time in my life for another massive thing. Like, I wouldn't know where to start. Do I really want to start watching the really old original ones? Probably not. Yeah. I'd be tempted to have a look at The Next Generation. I really enjoyed the episode that I watched for homework that introduced the Borg.
Oh, it's a great episode.
Really good episode. So yeah, I mean, I really love that 45-minute long. Here's a sci-fi idea. We're in, we're out. Did you enjoy it? Cool. Did you not? Well, there's another episode coming next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd definitely be up for giving them a binge at some point.
We might run out of content at some point on the podcast. We might be back.
You never know. Yeah, never say never. I've got one more kind of big question for us to tackle, which we've talked about a lot during this podcast and series, and I think we've approached a much closer an answer to it than I have ever before. And it's basically, what is it to be a fan? Because it strikes me that, Rob didn't realise he was a Star Trek fan until he saw some Star Trek that he didn't enjoy so much and realised he'd been really enjoying the rest. Like, can you be a fan without some disappointment, do you think?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't think so.
You do?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. Well, there's being a fan of something. It's more than just enjoying something. Like it's like it's like a marriage almost. And when you're a fan of something, you're a fan of something through thick and thin.
Yeah,
I think. And it's only when you get irritated with the stuff that isn't doing the thing you want or that you feel attached to that was how I realised, okay, well, maybe I am a fan of Star Trek then. If this is irritating me this much, you feel an ownership of a thing, and I think this is how sometimes fandoms can spill over into toxicity a little bit when fans get entitled or that passion becomes a little bit misdirected. But yeah, it's like being a fan of a football team. Like, Crystal Palace can play terribly and have a terrible season, and I'll hate every minute of watching them play. But I'm still a fan of them, and I can't change that.
But could you be a fan of them if they only ever won?
It's impossible for me to answer that question, Dave. Just impossible.
I suppose that there are things that you are a fan of. For example, would you agree that you are a big fan of the Game of Thrones books? And have they let you down?
In so far as the last two have never come out. Yes, they have let me down.
Yeah.
And well, you become a fan. There's the thing that makes you the fan. In that case, it would be the books. And the show comes along, and there'll be certain episodes that I would take umbrage with because they changed certain things, or that's the classic fan dilemma, right? When you're the fan of like a series of books, and then you get to see the cinematic adaptation, and what if they left out? What if they changed? Oh, I'm gonna get angry about this.
I was going to say, like, I feel like you're right, and what you said about toxicity, I was trying to think about how to frame it, and I kind of feel like fans have a responsibility, and I don't think that people talk about that loads. And obviously, probably loads of people might think that's a stupid idea, but I think there is a relationship between fans and the things that they're a fan of, and that entitlement is real, and you see it. And really, ultimately, a fan is, you want the thing which you're getting from something that you like, and that's why when that shifts or deviates, then that can become a source of kind of tension, or you hate it as a fan. But as the person creating, you obviously want to try different things. Probably you want to, and the best examples are where you're giving the fans things they didn't know they wanted.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. But I also think there's a responsibility to be a positive fan and to say, I've got this thing which I love, and there's more of it and I don't like it as much. We had a couple of conversations after I don't want to make a massive deal out of it, but we kind of felt like we were pretty negative last week on the podcast with Beyond, and we were kind of like, fair enough, those are our opinions. But it's like, there's a better way of expressing that, or let's not fall too deep into that trap. Although that is the joy of being a fan at the same time.
Yeah.
But I think there is joy. And I just really wanted to shout out somebody who, Sean Andrews wrote to us this week. It wasn't like an extraordinary message. It was a nice message.
Try harder, Sean.
No, but I just...
Wasn't that great?
Oh, no.
7 out of 10
Well, you were not a fan of this message, then.
I really wanted to be nice to Sean. And he just, some memories of, like, thanking us for the podcast, some memories of the movie which had made him a podcast fan the Star Trek fan in the first place, which was hiring generations from a video shop. Just saying, he knows it's not the best one, but for whatever reason it clicked, which is kind of what you were saying earlier on. And then disagreeing with us in a few places, but overall just sharing this thing that he likes. And I feel like that's the responsibility of a fan. If more people can do that, there's going to be some bits you don't like. Try and welcome people into the fandom and try. The whole job is to like, we all love this. Let's try and share it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I would defend us slightly on our approach to Beyond. I don't think we expressed well enough. Like, I enjoyed that movie. I think it's like a fun movie.
That was why it was so crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I did a good job of explaining that. And also, I don't think we were talking about it as one movie out of 13,
yes,
as opposed to just standing on its own 2 feet. But true. I do agree. And I think fandom, it can be to some people kind of a currency, can't it? Like I love this thing. I know the most about it, and I know how it should work and how it should go.
Yeah.
And I think that can.
I'll be honest, I felt that, especially as probably like a younger guy working in like games media, especially. There's a competitive element to it, which is sort of ridiculous, but it's because you love it and you want to show how much you love something.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good note because we're in looking forward and thinking about what we'd like this podcast to be. It is about fandoms, and it is kind of going to be about genre movies or series. And I guess we're looking at each other and we're going to try and be positive about things as much as we can. I think, Rob, you said it the other day. We want to leave people with the thing which they're better for than they would have been before. We want to tell people stuff they wouldn't have known, or have a discussion which makes them enjoy something. The best recaps I ever read when I'm following a TV show, they make me enjoy the episode of TV I just watched more. And it should be like that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that whatever we do next, and we will be talking about it, we're going to be watching things that a group of people love. And it might be all three of us. It might be just one of us. We're not going to be watching things that are like, here's a bad series of movies. We all agree. Let's watch them and hate on them. So, yes. Okay. Well, before we get on to what's coming up next, we're going to rank the films. We've all agreed to ranking. But before that, we're going to quickly do Rob's quiz to find out. And Rob,
you a fan, Rob? Prove it.
Yeah, prove it. Yeah. So let's not be toxic, but you will be killed if you get any single one of these questions wrong.
Whoa, Rob, what difficulty if you pitch these?
That's not true at all, honestly. Like, I've put this together. It's mostly revisiting the original quiz. There were some things you got wrong,
right?
To see, or you didn't know, to see if you picked any of the.
What if I get something wrong that I originally got right in the first quiz?
I'm not asking you the questions you got right, so
those
don't worry. Those are banked. Good. And then I've got some new questions, which there's not very many, and they're more about the films rather than. I've not gone like, what was the name of the ship that you first hit? It's not going to be like that.
Was that a fan's voice?
That was my voice. That was clearly my voice as a fan of Star Trek, which I am. I can ask you some questions like that if you want. Okay, so this is the original quiz, revisited to begin with. The first question was, who created Star Trek?
Gene Roddenberry.
That's right.
Did I get that wrong first time?
Yeah, you did. You said, I can do a joke answer, and it was William Shatner was your joke answer.
Oh.
And I said, wasn't very funny. But clearly I thought that was funny. What is Captain Kirk's middle name?
Tiberius.
Yes.
Wow.
I was going to ask initial, but I thought, no, you must know the name
now.
You
can do this.
Yeah. What is the name of the fictional organisation for which the crew of the Enterprise works? I know you know this.
The Federation.
I will accept the Federation, yeah. I was looking for Starfleet, but it's hard to describe Starfleet and the Federation.
That's Starfleet Academy.
Starfleet is like the Earth's
military, isn't it?
kind of space wing,
right,
which are part of the Federation of Planets, which is like a kind of UN.
Yes.
In space. Okay. Slightly more tricky one. How many Star Trek captains can you name? You already named James T. Kirk and Captain Picard. Can you name any more captains? There's a couple. There's two that I think you should get, and then there's some other ones which I'm not expecting you to get.
Don't be limited by the TV shows.
No, just in the movies we've come across.
Oh, just people who have been captains at some point.
Yeah.
Pike.
Yes, Captain Pike, great one.
Sulu was captain at some point.
Captain Sulu, absolutely right.
I was going to say 5 would be good.
Spock's been a captain.
Captain
there we
Spock.
Go.
Yes.
5.
Those are the 3 I was hoping for. Can you do any more? To be fair, I've only written one more.
Balthazar Edison was captain of the Franklin.
He absolutely was. My God, he's on fire. Wow, this is great.
Yeah. I wish I could remember the name of the captain of that rubbish ship in that movie? There was a movie, I can't even remember which movie it was, but they went after Kirk when they were like, no, you can't go out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the ship.
He was an awful captain. I've forgotten his name as well. I think.
And the captain at the beginning of Generations, I can't remember his name either.
No.
Oh,
Captain
Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
There's Captain Tyrrell, who's the captain with Chekhov
rubbish.
from Wrath of
He's
Khan.
so rubbish.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have remembered him.
He does save the day.
George Kirk?
Yes, George Kirk. Another good one. Yeah, captains. Those are captains. Great stuff. That was good. I'm really impressed with that. Well done. Which empire is at war with Starfleet in the original series?
The Klingon Empire.
Yes, it is. That's right.
Was that a trick question?
You said Vulcan Empire last time.
What if you had said Romulan?
I was thinking Romulan, but
that would also have been true.
Yeah.
I would.
Although isn't the war over by the original? Anyways.
Yeah. I asked you to do an impersonation of the Klingon language in the first episode. Are you comfortable to do that now? That's pretty good.
Yeah, got the intonation there.
How many extraterrestrial species from Star Trek can you name?
He needs a target. Let's say 5 again.
5 would be great. This is hard. Last time I don't. Well, you could. I think you said Vulcan.
So there's the Vulcans, the Romulans, the Klingons.
Yeah,
indeed. Those are
the big ones.
Those are the
three.
Those are the classics.
The big 3. It is hard. It's tough.
Trying to think of any others now. The Borg.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Good one.
The Q.
Ah,
Yeah.
can't argue with that.
Yeah. That's it. He's done it.
5. There we go.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say the Remans as a...
No, I've forgotten that one. Aren't they humans?
No.
Nah, they're like a subspecies of Romulan. It's not very well defined.
I can't. The Baku.
The Baku. Wow. Yeah. Good memory.
And who are the other ones?
From Insurrection.
Yes.
Well, they were also the Barkunath, as you pointed out in that episode. Yeah.
The sonar.
Sonar.
Is it them?
Yeah. Wow. You've got a real skill for this.
Yeah.
The last question from the original quiz was, what century do the films take place? Well, certainly the original series.
The 23rd century?
It is the 23rd century.
Wow.
I'd say that's gold star for that quiz.
Thank you.
Really good. I'm not sure I'd have got that last one.
A couple of extra questions that you haven't been asked before. First is, how many directors has Star Trek had, as in the movies?
Oh my
How many
God.
different directors?
Oh, how many? That's a tough one because that's like you're right or wrong. How many can you name?
It is tough. Well, that's my second question, is how many can you name?
I see.
Did Gene Roddenberry direct any?
No.
He didn't.
The movies.
Yeah.
The movies that we've seen.
Yeah.
Next bit where he talks about the movies and who directs
I
them.
know. Well, Shatner and Nimoy definitely
Yes.
directed.
Okay. Yes,
Some
they did.
Abrams directed.
Yeah.
Justin Lin directed the
Hey.
one we've just seen.
That's 4.
They're like the famous ones. I can't remember who.
There's one more who I would say is a famous one who
There's another member of the cast, and then there's the
character name
the
will do.
guy who played Riker.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jonathan Frakes.
Yes.
the director of Thunderbirds as well.
I don't know who that is, but
No, it's Jonathan Frakes.
Frakes directed 2 of them, didn't he?
He did.
He did,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, the director I was hoping you might also get is Nicholas Meyer, who did Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country.
I didn't realise he directed them. I
and
thought
then
he-
was disparaging about Into Darkness because they'd, rehashed
I
his
thought he'd
story.
just written those. I didn't realise he directed them as well.
He did. And you missed out Robert Wise from the motion picture.
I wouldn't have got that.
And David Carson from Generations.
Wouldn't have got that.
Not a great one. And Stuart Baird, which was...
Is he the one who didn't like Star Trek?
Yeah, he made
Yeah.
executive
Yeah.
decision.
Can you name the Vulcan lieutenant who appears in 2 Star Trek movies?
No.
I can tell you... Do you know who I mean?
absolutely.
She's a woman.
Oh, I really liked her.
You did.
Mr.
Mr. Savick.
Mr. Savick.
That's it.
That's
as soon as
right.
you said Mr., I was like, you're going to get this now.
Yeah, not sure about
Mr.
this.
Savick.
Question mark after that, whether you got that or not. What's the highest rank we see any Kirk attain? I just wanted to say any Kirk.
Any Kirk, Admiral.
Admiral. It is. Which, in his old age, which of Kirk's senses is deteriorating?
His hearing.
No.
Spectacles.
It might be, but it's
Oh,
his
his
sight.
eyesight.
They keep giving him reading glasses, don't they? Which member of the crew is mockingly called Tiny in one of the movies?
Sulu.
It is. And the last question, what is the name of the Vulcan mating period? You know I'm obsessed with it.
Period?
You know,
the Ponfar.
Yes, the Ponfar. Yeah, the sort of, the time, every 7 years.
Stop it.
What? Ponfar?
I literally don't want any more detail.
I'm holding up, for those at home, I'm holding my hands out now and slowly caressing each finger. Rob, I think that, these were not meant to catch you out, and they didn't catch you out.
I'm a Star Trek fan.
You're a Star Trek fan?
I'm a Star Trek
Absolutely.
fan.
No one could doubt it. Congratulations. That was very, very impressive. But a big part of being a fan of something probably is having a ranking in mind.
Yes.
An idea about what's good and what's not
balance,
so good.
Isn't it? Let's not be toxic, but let's rank
Now we must
everyone.
rank. Yes, we must
Everyone loves a
decide
ranking.
definitively
It is fun.
what's good and what's bad. So before this podcast recording, each of Nath, Rob and I decided on our own personal rankings, and then Rob has brought them together with a point scoring system. He may or may not explain to us. So Nath and I don't actually know the final ranking.
We do not.
We're about to find out.
I think our full lists might be
now.
quite different as well.
There's a lot of discrepancy.
That's very interesting.
But I can reveal that in 13th place, and this will come as a surprise to no one, it's Star Trek Insurrection.
Oh no. Rob, I've just looked at what I sent you, and I've written them in reverse order.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I realised I'd done it.
Right, okay, thank God.
Dave really loves Insurrection.
Insurrection is at the bottom.
Let me tell you, it was not at the bottom for me.
It wasn't in the bottom for you, but I think it was at the absolute bottom of my list, and I think very near towards the bottom of Nath's list.
Yeah,
It was the bottom.
Yeah.
it was.
In 12th place, I should say the points. Insurrection had 7 total points. 7 points.
They all from me, I think.
In 12th place, with 8 points, it's The Search for Spock.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Screaming Vulcan child.
It's so weird that I also now, after being on this journey, have a sort of warmth for it, though.
I remember not hating that film as much as
You didn't.
two.
You increased
Didn't
your
like it.
warp speed at the
I
end of
did.
it.
In 11th place, with 9 points, it's Star Trek Generations.
Oh, you scumbags.
Poor Generations.
What? Did you
Mine was a
rate
little
it higher than that?
Only 2 places higher, but yeah.
I had that second to last for me.
In 10th place, top 10 now, the top 10 Star Trek films with 14 points, so quite a jump. That's Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Yeah,
Most of those points are from me. That's quite high up my list, Star Trek the Motion Picture. In 9th place, with 15 points, Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah,
Interesting.
these are all of my bottom 5 have now been accounted for.
Yeah. In 8th place, also with 15 points, but above Beyond, because in one of our lists it was placed highest. It's The Final Frontier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm surprised the Final Frontier is so high. I've got a real warmth for it, but I put it.
I think
put
I'm
it
probably the
quite
person
low
who
down.
put it quite high.
You are, I think.
I was just, and it's funny because I think my sense of what I liked changed even since we've recorded these. I was looking back on them and yeah.
Same.
Mid-table now, 7th place,
Yeah.
with 20 points, a respectable 20 points, Star Trek Nemesis.
Wow.
I think probably a bad film. I think we agreed, but
so
I
we're,
just quite
we're
enjoyed
saying that
quite a lot of
Nemesis
it.
is better than The Final Frontier.
I think so.
That's what we've said.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that is what I agreed, to be fair. I wrote
Final
that as well.
Frontier had God at the end.
That is true. I quite like
And
Cyborg.
Tom Hardy was really good in Nemesis.
He was, can't argue.
Number 6,
Are we-
6th place.
Do you think we're into good films?
I think we
Yeah,
have
I
to
think
say we're
we
into good
must be
films now.
yeah.
In 6th place with 22 points, Star Trek, the Abrams original Star Trek.
Yeah.
5th place, top 5. There's a big jump here. 30 points for Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's right.
In 4th place, also with 30 points, but ahead of Star Trek Into Darkness because it's placed very highly in a couple of your lists. It's Star Trek The Wrath of Khan.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's in 4th. Oh, God,
It's in
gutted.
4th on my list.
It's further down
it's
on
in
my list.
First on my
It's
list.
further down on my. It's inconsistently placed.
Wow.
It's in.
How weird, scattershot.
It's in 8th on my list, but 4th overall. The Wrath of Khan. Top 3 then with 32 points. Number 3, The Undiscovered Country.
Oh, that's my number 2.
With all of the Shakespeare and Chang in his eye patch.
I just can't extract myself from the love of them all saying goodbye. I love it so much.
In second place, with 34 points, it's The Voyage Home.
Wow.
No way.
Yes.
All the whales.
No.
The
Yes.
whales. It was my second place.
First Contact can't be in first place.
Yeah.
It can't be the best Star Trek movie.
Quite clearly, 37 points.
My goodness me.
First Contact. First Contact was the top of both mine and Nath's lists.
Wow.
And it was third in yours. So you can't really argue that
No,
collectively...
I'm not.
We like it the
I'm a
best.
bit surprised. We all just spoke about, I think, how much we love the original cast, but we've all put. It's not that it has a bearing. It's interesting. We've all, the Next Generation cast have ended up with the best movie.
I think
in a series where we've preferred the other cast.
Yeah, and I think it's like the saving grace of TNG on the big screen, whereas because the rest of them were quite bad.
Yeah.
and I also think it's like the Abrams movies are geared to be these huge action movies, so you expect it. That was like a surprise. There's like punching above its weight, and it delivers a really great action.
It was a really good film. But let's not forget that 3 of the top 5 are original cast movies. That's Voyage Home, Undiscovered Country, and The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Fair.
The evens, 2, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There they are.
Well, we're just
Well, First Contact's
plugging
also an
into
even. It very much continues.
plugging
And there
into
we
the
are. There's
orthodoxy.
the definitive Redshirt Cinema Club ranking of all 13 Star Trek
Wow,
movies.
people can stop talking about that now.
We've done it. We've done it. We should
Do you
write
know
that down somewhere.
The big controversy in my list was that I actually put Into Darkness above Wrath of Khan. I thought about it for ages.
What?
I don't know.
Oh my god!
I was like, what would I
did
like
that
to
as
see
well,
again?
but I put a lot of stuff above The Wrath of Khan.
I'm shocked.
That was 3 and 4 for me. Yeah.
Wow. This is fascinating stuff. Well, we better move along quickly before my head explodes, because I can't hear about The Wrath of Khan being voted so terribly by everyone else any longer. And Nath, we've already had a message from someone out there,
Sean.
but it's the mailbag bit.
Thanks for smashing up Sean, everyone.
I don't know if you've listened to the end of an episode where I say that there's a team of highly trained tribbles.
No.
Rob now knows what a tribble is.
One of those little fluffy things.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So good.
In fact, it's just Nathan who's been.
I think the only time I've seen a
gathering-
tribble is when Carl Urban was like, I can get this tribble alive with Khan's blood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can tell you now that they're like. There's an episode of the original Star Trek, where they're like an invasive species that just multiplies at an alarming rate, and like someone brings one onto the ship. It's like they've got from an away mission, like, look at this little creature, and then suddenly there's hundreds of them, and they're everywhere, and they're a massive problem.
There's a Yu-Gi-Oh card that does that.
Right. Well,
It's not called a tribble.
I wonder where they got the idea.
Maybe from Star Trek. Yeah.
And they're like a kind of ongoing joke, or a returning joke for Star Treks. The tribbles turn up now and again for a laugh, especially if anyone ever goes back in time. It's a big thing. So yes, Carl Urban operating on a tribble and discovering that's how he discovers that Khan's blood can regenerate life was a bit of a joke, really.
I guess that's just what he does in his downtime.
Yeah, just
When he's not got
experiments and
much to do.
tribbles.
Just
There's loads of them.
Triple time?
Triple
Just
time.
triple
Bit of
time.
triple
yeah.
time. So Nath, you've got some mail for us.
I do.
Neither Rob nor I know anything about this. So
No, there's just some.
what do you
There's
got?
some nice comments, and there's a few questions. And just on your point about whether people have heard the message, one of the things I think we should do in the future is put that message at the beginning.
Right. I did think about
so
this
that
too.
people
Yeah.
actually write in. So this is just a nice message from Eddie Morris, who had just an incredible fact. Eddie wrote in just to say he was enjoying the podcast.
Excellent.
I said, "Hey man,
That's a
thanks."
great reason to write in, by the way.
Thanks
Don't
for-
feel you have to say anything interesting. Just say,
No.
I really enjoy this podcast.
Or
and we'll be happy.
the opposite, if you feel really strongly, I guess.
Oh wow, yes.
Maybe just say that out loud
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll hear it.
And then, in his follow-up email, Eddie said, fun fact, I graduated from Liberty High School in Bethlehem, PA. What's that?
Philadelphia.
Which is the same school Jonathan Frakes went to. My mum did as well and was in his graduating class of 1970.
Wow.
Sounds cool.
That was just cool. It is a
So
small
there's someone
world.
who listens to the podcast whose mum is friends with Riker.
Well,
Yeah.
friends is... We've made it. But yeah, sure, why not?
I can't imagine what that's like going to school with someone who's become really famous. Like, imagine being Eddie's mum and seeing Jonathan Frakes sitting on chairs in that special way he does.
Yeah, I
and
know.
she must have been like,
He did that at school.
he wasn't like that at school.
did them all the
so
time.
weird.
I've got one more bit of Riker news to...
Is this going to be a returning part of the podcast? Riker news.
Riker news.
Spotted.
Yes. And it's from... part of the reason I'm reading this one out is because it comes from Gordon Tuff.
Okay.
Gordon Tuff. That's his name. It's spelt like he's tough.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tough Gordon.
Tough Gordon writes, really enjoying the series so far after being recommended by a friend. Although it is officially non-canon, the Peter David novel Imzadi explores the early relation of Troy and Riker. Troy refers to Riker as being her Imzadi, which means her first. Whilst this could be sexual, it could also be the first person to touch her soul. And Gordon also says, I'm a bit surprised that you skipped over Beverly Crusher when we were discussing, given that her aren't they relationship with Picard. And there's also a very famous ghost scene, which I wanted to explain to Rob, because it's completely preposterous. And just part of one of the things that which the TNG series did. So I think I explained to you that, there's that one time Riker goes down to a planet which is led by women, and it's like this matriarchy, and they all just lose their minds because he's so attractive. I watched an episode where he
write that episode?
I watched an episode where he was undercover in a pre-warp civilization, but then he gets discovered, and the doctor he's like trying to escape because he's going to be found out, it's going to be terrible, and the doctor will only let him go if he sleeps with her, so he does, and it is sort of played for laughs, but that kind of makes it worse.
I also want to just remind Rob about the Clips show at the end of season 1, where Riker is stung by some sort of space plant, and they figure out that the only way for him to fight the infection is to make him feel different emotions. So each of the cast just reminds him of things that have happened in that series. So they're like, remember when we visited that planet and you were really scared? And it's like cuts back to the cliff. It's working. Keep fighting the plant.
But I think the Beverly Crusher episode, I barely remember it, but I think her grandmother passes away. So she goes to the memorial and she's staying in her grandmother's house.
Yes.
And then she has a physical relationship with the ghost that used to bang her grandma.
Yes, exactly.
And I just wanted to bring that to
It's amazing. And also, I do think, I don't think we talked about this enough in the podcast. Beverly Crusher is just like, she just doesn't really get a look in the movies. I don't really know why. She's a much bigger part of the Next Generation. And you'd get no sense at all that this are they, aren't they kind of relationship she has with Picard. It's just not in the movies at all. It's not even referred to slightly. It's very strange.
But then the Uhura Spock problem, maybe they were avoiding it.
Yeah,
just didn't
perhaps.
Know. Alfie Garrett writes in by email again. Says, I'm a big fan of your new podcast. I don't know why he says, I'm a big fan of your new podcast and everything you guys have done on YouTube. Thanks very much. My question is more to Nathan than the others. I was wondering if the Shatner biography and any other Trek books are worth a read. He certainly seems an interesting character. So I got the Shatner biography. It's called Movie Memories or Trek Movie Memories. And there's also one just called Trek Memories. I got it from the library, and I think that's the perfect
top tip.
That's the perfect level. Yeah,
don't buy it.
Do you guys know libraries?
Yeah.
And I've read a few other bits and pieces, but mostly magazine articles like Starlog magazines that I found online. There is 25 years of. I can't remember exactly, the 25-year mission, and it's like a 3-part oral history. They're good. I found they were good on the original and TNG eras more than the new era, because I think people, after 10 or 15 years, they do an interview, they just chat. But those movies were new enough that they were still very kind of PR. So that answers Alfie's question. Devlin Burgess writes in, hello, Captain Dave, Lieutenant Nath, and newly promoted Ensign Rob.
Great bit of respect there.
You can see where this is from as well. Yeah. First off, wanted to say how much I've enjoyed the podcast, even as someone who is, and I apologise for this, definitely not a fan of Star Trek. Some compliments for us. So my question is, how do Nath and Dave feel about other Star Trek-esque shows like The Orville or Battlestar Galactica, or a bit further afield, things like Farscape and Firefly? And then there's a PS at the end for Rob, which is, if you like Mass Effect, you should probably try Farscape specifically. It's very similar and very good. So to you, Dave, what, I guess, is there a Star Trek-like show that you enjoy, and if so, which one?
Probably not. I have really enjoyed Firefly.
Yeah.
I think that I watched it again probably 10 years ago, a little bit more.
So we mentioned this on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Right.
And I went and watched an episode, and it actually does hold up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I definitely felt like watching it 10 years ago, I enjoyed it less than I had when I first saw it.
Oh, interesting.
But I still think it's great, and I'm not dissing it, but I don't know.
It was chill. It was like it is a bit slower.
It was,
and it's got that sort of music. I tell you one thing, that's because they're kind of Confederates, like in the kind of the space analogy, that hangs with me a little bit less comfortably now.
Do you know what? It's interesting. The thing I'm wrestling with is, and this is a part of being a fan as well, maybe, is I think I enjoy it. I don't want to watch it again.
Meh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know how, in a way, that makes me feel kind of weird. Like Star Wars, I'm a fan of. I will watch them again.
Yeah. Do you know, most of the reason I rewatch stuff now is to just see what it's like now that I'm a bit older.
Right.
Is it like I remember? So I'd watch Firefly on that basis. And also, just to mention, Battlestar Galactica, especially because I never knew enough about Star Trek to know that it was made, like created and showrun by Ronald D. Moore, who was one of the showrunners on The Next Generation and then was involved in the making of the movies and all of that era of Star Trek. I fell off Battlestar Galactica. I found it very depressing. It's quite a depressing show. And I would go back. Everyone raved about it. And I think it kind of exists, it's like in between. It's bigger budget and sort of bigger ideas than those Star Trek shows at the time, but pre-streaming, so it's not like a shorter run of glitzier episodes. So interesting kind of mid-period in the noughties.
The end of my answer really was that
sorry.
No, not at all. I wanted to explain that I have watched some Farscape. I did enjoy some Farscape, but showing my age, when I was watching these shows, like part of Star Trek's, the reason I was able to watch Star Trek is because it was regularly on at a time I could always have control of the telly in my house.
And there was only 4 channels.
I knew where it was. Exactly. And there was only 4 channels or then 5 channels. The other shows, I just didn't have access to them, or I would stumble across them and not know how to catch them again. So I've seen bits of Farscape. I've never seen Battlestar Galactica. I was lucky to see all of Firefly, but there's not loads of it.
I think there's that mid-period, isn't there? When you're a kid, what's on at BBC 2 at 6 o'clock? And then when I'm older, if I really want to watch something, I probably could. There was a period of time in my 20s where I didn't have that much money. If something's on Sky, I'm not watching it.
No, exactly.
I would never, I didn't watch Battlestar Galactica, fell into that. Or like Stargate when I was younger.
And I don't know what the Orville is.
Oh, it's a Star Trek-like show made by Seth MacFarlane.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if it's a comedy or not. I don't know.
Right.
I think it's sort of a comedy. I think it's in that Galaxy Quest.
I was going to say,
area.
For some reason, my mind is thinking of Galaxy Quest. I don't know if it's related at all.
Going back to the mailbag, 2 more messages. PJ William. I've been listening to the show since week 1. Stumbled across it by accident and very glad I did. We're very glad too, PJ. Felt compelled to write in to point out the boldness of this project. Trek lives in TV. The movies don't do it justice at all. We've talked about this, of course. Trek is particularly important to me. From watching the original series with my granddad to the 90s heyday, it was a big part of my upbringing. Since my dad passed away a few years ago, I've been doing a deep dive into the shows and enjoying the journey thoroughly. Your show has been a fabulous listen so far. I have a few predictions about what may or may not happen as the next few phases of movies unfold. I wonder if they did come to pass. Fascinated to see how it goes. But once again, Trek is best on TV. 45 minutes dedicated to character development, sci-fi concepts, philosophical ideas, and space Irishmen is much more suited to what the franchise is all about. Thanks for the distraction, Peter.
Oh, that's a really lovely message.
That's a nice message.
It is, and I do totally agree. I think we all totally agree.
Yeah, we did it. Peter, you're right, and we did it this way anyway. And finally, there's a question for everybody from Scott R, who says, "Dear Dave, Nath, and Rob, loving the podcast. Makes the washing up far more entertaining. I'm a huge geek for the ships in Star Trek. I love learning about the stats and capabilities of the various ships. My favourite hero ship is the Enterprise D, a well-armed luxury liner, and my favourite design is the Steamrunner class with its enclosed nacelles. Have any of the ships or designs caught your eyes, and if so, which ones?" From Scott.
Personally, I would have to say the Klingon Bird of Prey.
Oh, really?
I just think it
Just
looks
the classic.
super cool. It looks angry. It looks dangerous. I like the shade of green. I like the way that it's like little weapons port glows before it fires.
Yeah.
And I
They're
love,
a mess on the inside, though, aren't they?
They're a mess on the. I like that too. I like that they're kind of cobbled together and everyone's angry in there, and there's a space dog in there. Yeah. So I think I do love the design of the Klingon bird of prey, especially if it comes to Enterprises. I'm not sure. The Enterprise. I'm not sure which one I would say is my favourite, and I'm trying to think which one the D was. That might be First Contact. Is the Enterprise D? We could probably figure out if we took some time, but I'm not going to do that now. How about you guys? Do you have a favourite ship?
Well, I think it's a very vanilla answer, but it's got to be the classic Enterprise design. I don't think you can beat that, really.
From the motion picture.
Just looks cool. Yeah. Just, and I think
it does look
as
cool.
As the films went on, it got gradually more sort of rounded and sleek.
Yeah.
Like cars have changed. And I feel like cars now are beginning to get a little bit more angular again and a bit more angry looking and aggressive.
The Cybertruck.
Yes.
My favourite interior Enterprise interior is from The Undiscovered Country. I think we talked about this at the time. They had a DOP come on who had no affinity with Star Trek and was like, well, it's a deep space mission. I think Nicholas Meyer agreed. It's a deep space thing. It should look more like a submarine. It should be like, they're out. Space is at a premium, so everything's a bit more enclosed, a bit more dark. I thought it really fit. I just think it's very cool. I'm not such a big fan of the very clean, white, kind of bright interior.
I enjoyed First Contact in terms of it actually giving us a tour beyond just the bridge.
Yeah.
Like I felt I got to explore the Enterprise a lot more in that. Obviously, the Borg had invaded and turned it into an extraterrestrial nightmare of a place. But I enjoyed getting into the tunnels and getting into the maintenance shafts and all that kind of thing.
Jeffries tubes.
Yes. How about you, Nath?
I have a couple of answers. There was a ship and I can't remember the name of it. Maybe it was Sulu's ship in The Undiscovered Country.
Yeah.
There was
the Excelsior, I think.
There was one ship which was kind of an updated version of that classic Enterprise nacelles kind of look, which really appealed to me. I can't remember what it was. My favourite ship though is the Defiant, which isn't in the movie.
No,
it is in the movie. It's in First Contact.
Oh, it is very briefly, yeah.
And it's just purely for where it came in this series. I only watched a couple of series of Deep Space Nine religiously, but at that point they're at war with the Jem'Hadar. The war cast of what are they called? The shape-shifting.
The foundlings.
Yeah, and as a whole, they've got like a name, but I can't remember what it is. And the Defiant is like the Federation's gone on a war footing, and it starts to win fights. And the first couple of battles it wins, it's just so exciting. So I don't think it's probably completely the opposite to everything that the spirit of Star Trek is telling us. We're explorers. And I like this one ship that really messes everybody up.
It's got a great name as well, though. In the face of like an invasion, the ship that says no.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
We're gonna kill you all. No.
So that's mailbag, and please keep writing in to redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com.
Yeah, and honestly, your message can just be, "I'm enjoying this." It doesn't have to say anything. It's just nice to hear from you, because otherwise, when we are just talking into the void. Obviously, we'd also love, some more detailed thoughts. Any tidbits you have learned about the movies we're talking about, or things you'd like us to watch in the future. We'd love to hear from you.
Also worth saying, pulling the curtain back a little bit, that in producing this first set, we were basically getting used to recording as often, and we had a few holidays. So we have been out of sync with the release schedule. We've been doing stuff in advance. It's going to be much easier for us in the future to include mailbags. So some of those were like a month or two ago. Yes. And we'll be better at doing things on
We are recording this episode the day before it goes live. So we're completely up to date. Today is Tuesday. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Feels so exhilarating.
I know.
To have such a short lead time.
We can almost touch the listeners.
It's also a little bit scary as well. And speaking of scary, it's that point in the epispisode where we need to look ahead.
The future is
nothing scarier than the future. And we spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking about this. And, I'm sure that the podcast is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve right now, and Rob's going to tell us, or tell you, I already know, about the plan for the podcast going forward.
Yeah, I think it's exciting.
It is exciting.
We've got to the end of this experiment, which is, it has a very clear format. We show someone who hasn't seen these movies the movies, and can that turn them into a fan
Do you like
of
the
that
movies
thing?
now?
So obviously we're not going to be able to do that for everything, but we do have like a plan for how we're going to go forward, and we've got a plan up to Christmas. But most importantly, we have launched a Patreon, which is live immediately. So we have some exciting plans for the Patreon going forward. It's going to launch fairly simply. The important thing to note is that all of the main episodes will continue to be freely available to listen to on all of your favourite podcast platforms. So if you're not in a position to support us on Patreon, totally cool. You can continue to listen to the podcast as you already have been doing. A much requested feature is that we are going to be uploading the episodes to YouTube.
You did it. Are you happy, everyone?
Yeah, so many questions. Is this coming to YouTube? It will still be audio only, but if you prefer to listen to your podcasts on YouTube, you will have that option from now.
Or if you want to just watch the still image of our faces
on mute
for 1 hour.
You can do that as well if you like. But yeah, you can comment on YouTube, can't you? So
you can.
Maybe that's like
my God.
that's another way to
this may be a terrible mistake.
Get your opinions into the mailbag. Who knows?
You can also like on YouTube. So
you can
consider liking.
Please do like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And all of those good things.
I've been here before.
But yes, if you would like to support us, we have launched a Patreon. So we're going to launch it with 2 tiers, and the entry-level tier we're calling Ensign, and it's like $2. It's like a tip jar, essentially. So if you like what we do and you want to support us, you can tip us $2 a month and continue to listen to the podcast as you have been doing. You will also get access to a monthly newsletter. And now I've said it, we're going to have to do
happen
it.
now. When does that start?
Who's going to write the newsletter?
I thought you were doing it.
We all will contribute and do the newsletter.
Right. Is it too late to rename that the Civilian Observer?
That's
Great. Oh yeah, we'll call it that. Perfect.
That's so good.
It's done.
Yeah.
The Civilian Observer.
Yeah.
It took us about 6 months to name the podcast, but that was just
there will be another tier, a $5 a month tier, and for that you will get 2 Patreon exclusive bonus episodes per month. So that will be maybe a deeper dive into the movies that we're watching at that particular time, a little bit of bonus watching, just something that gives you a little bit extra. But yes, if you would like to support us on Patreon, it would mean a great deal. Please do. It is live now. And we do have some exciting plans for additional tiers later in the future and cool, fun things that we can offer you. But that's all to come in the future.
I think it's worth saying this. We've never done a Patreon before.
No.
So we wanted to start simple, not mess it up, and then see what options were down the line.
Exactly,
we have no idea how these things work, how people will feel.
Yeah.
Would you like to support us? We don't know. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
We'll see.
But crucially, if you're not in a position to support us, you can continue listening to the podcast for free on all of your favourite podcast platforms.
Yes.
Going forward then, we've talked about this quite a lot in the previous episodes. Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It is, to me, I think, what Star Trek is to you, Dave.
Yeah.
And also, it flips around in that, inexplicably, in my opinion, you haven't seen any Doctor Who.
No.
Which I think is just as surprising
madness.
as me not
managed it.
having seen any Star Trek. Because
I
it's
don't know
the up there with Star Trek, in my opinion, as the quintessential long-running sci-fi franchise.
From the 60s.
Yeah,
I know.
1963. In fact, I think Doctor Who is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest running sci-fi series.
Wow.
Suck that
Of all
Star
time.
Trek.
Yeah.
Wow, this is really different on this side of things.
So we are going to spend 5 episodes, so not as long as the Star Trek season. We are going to show, in each episode, we're going to show Dave either one episode or maybe a double bill from an era of Doctor Who. Now, we're not going from the 1963 to 1989 period. We're leaving that alone. We're going from the 2005 revival onwards. And in each episode, we're going to show Dave one of the first 5 Doctors of that era. So next Monday's episode, we're going to be showing you, Dave, the episode Rose and the episode Dalek from the Christopher Eccleston Doctor Who era. So just to put it into a little bit of context into how much of a big deal this was at the time. So Doctor Who started in 1963. 26 consecutive seasons, one a year for 26 years until 1989, when, for whatever reason, viewing figures and sentiment around the show had started to decline, and it was ultimately cancelled by the BBC. Although not forever cancelled, it was always talked about in terms of the BBC would always say, "Oh, we're still planning on bringing Doctor Who back."
Bit of a hiatus,
but there were no concrete plans to do so. There was the nearest it got was in 1996 when. I've got this written down. Oh, this is like a Nathan Light bit now, where I'm going into history. Philip Segal, who's a British expat who worked for Columbia Pictures at the time, and I'm guessing was a Doctor Who fan, he approached the BBC and wanted to basically revive the show. And a television movie did get greenlit in the end, which was a combined production between Fox Network, Universal Pictures, the BBC, and BBC Worldwide.
Wow.
So a lot going into this. It starred Paul McCann as the Doctor. And this TV movie was seen as like, okay, testing the waters. What's the audience reaction going to be like to this? And it was a big success in the UK, 9.1 million viewers.
I was one of them.
But it bombed in the US. And because it was a US-backed thing, that was enough for it to get canned. And so 1996, so 7 years after the show has been stopped on the BBC, Doctor Who again is sort of like in this limbo period, and it wasn't until 2005 where BBC Wales, based in Cardiff, finally got an agreement in place to revive the series, and Russell T Davies became the showrunner. So all in all, we're talking about a 16-year hiatus for Doctor Who, which I consider myself part of the lost generation who never got to experience Doctor Who on TV as a child.
Wow.
Like I was 2 years old when they stopped production on the original series, and was 20 years old when they revived it. So
I was of the generation where I was very young, but I would watch the Sylvester McCoy Doctor Who, and they would show reruns from previous ones. It was extremely scary, and I really fancied Ace, who was the
Well, this is the thing. There's like a real defined format to it. So you probably know this, Dave, but it's written into the narrative of Doctor Who that when the Doctor dies, he or they regenerate. And that's how they explain narratively the new actor who comes in every so often, typically after... Well, in the revived series, it's typically every 3 seasons the Doctor regenerates. Christopher Eccleston only got 1 season because he had a big falling out with Russell T Davies and the production crew, which is a shame because I really liked Christopher Eccleston's Doctor. But just to give you some kind of sense of the amount of time, we talk about Star Trek from the time when that TV show stopped to when the first movie came out. I can't remember how many years it was, but it wasn't 16 years.
No, it was 12.
Like this has been... it was still quite a long time.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So this is a big deal. And as Nath pointed out, like Doctor Who garnered a huge following in its original run, and it became famous for, or one of the things it was enjoyed for, was it was like a family show, but it introduced often very scary imagery and themes and stories for children. It was like horror for children, basically. And there was almost a little bit of a moral panic around it sometimes. So the first episode we're going to show you is called Rose. It's the first time we've seen the Doctor for 16 years. I watched this episode yesterday just to remind myself of it. It's going to be an interesting watch. It's very 2005.
Is it? Sorry, it's literally episode 1 of this new
episode 1
series.
of the first series of the revived Doctor Who, just to get you in the headspace for it.
Yeah.
So it introduces the Doctor, played by Christopher Eccleston. It introduces the Doctor's companion, played by Billie Piper, and we get to see an enemy that is like an homage to one of the scary enemies of the original series. So I won't say any more than that. Visually, it's very interesting and very 2005, but not just 2005. It's very BBC TV 2005.
Yeah,
just to set your expectations
for
what you're going to see.
The thing was, I remember watching this and going, "Wow, they've really updated Doctor Who. This is fantastic."
Yeah. But when all the original episodes are available on BBC iPlayer, so you can go back and watch Doctor Who from 1963.
Wow.
And
this isn't it, because I don't know much pre-modern Who, so that's something I'd be interested to know from our listeners, is if there is, not loads, but if there's up to 5 episodes from the past. Then
I remember watching one at university and being really intrigued by it, like a clearly one set, multiple camera angle production just set in a room.
Yeah.
And seeing how it's evolved is pretty amazing. But anyway, we're going to watch Rose, which is the first episode, and then we're going to watch an episode which I think is really good, called Dalek, which will introduce you to probably the most iconic Doctor Who adversary there is.
Yes.
So a Christopher Eccleston double bill is what you've got to look forward to.
Well, I am aware of the Daleks, obviously. Well, I say obviously. It's interesting, there are things I know about Doctor Who, again, just from kind of cultural osmosis. Like I knew about the regeneration thing. I know what the TARDIS is, and I know what it looks like, and I know it's big on the inside.
Do you know what it stands for?
No.
Okay.
Good.
We'll find out.
And I know he's got an assistant. And I know about the Daleks. That's basically it. I also know about the episode Midnight, because you talked about it in the first episode of this podcast.
Oh.
And that I'm extremely excited to watch that one.
Are we going to lay out all of the schedule now in this podcast, or just let people know in the notes?
We're going to let people know the broad strokes,
okay.
I think. So we're gonna show Dave 5 episodes worth of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Occasionally those will be double bills. So we're going to show him some Eccleston, some David Tennant, some Matt Smith, some Peter Capaldi, and some Jodie Whittaker. I haven't seen the most recent series starring in Ncuti Gatwa, so we're not gonna touch those. It's almost like a new era of Doctor Who has happened now as well. Like it's got a new production team. I could go into the story behind that. It's Bad Wolf who made His Dark Materials,
okay, yeah,
among other things. But the people who founded it originally worked with Russell T Davies on the original revival of Doctor Who, and the name Bad Wolf comes from an overarching plot from the first Christopher Eccleston series. So it's like a poetic full circle for the production company Bad Wolf to now be the ones who are making, in conjunction with BBC, the new series of Doctor Who. Anyway, we're going to do 5 episodes of Doctor Who. Then we're going to tackle the Alien movies.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Which I'm really looking forward to.
I'm excited and nervous.
Yes, very much so. And we are going to arrive beautifully in December with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Followed by the Hobbit trilogy. It's going to be a glorious Christmas. And where we go from there is, at the moment, anybody's guess.
Yes.
But we hope you come on this journey with us. We're going into uncharted territory now.
Yeah.
An unexpected journey.
Yes.
Yes. And it is an uncharted journey. We are still defining what this podcast will be in the future, what we might watch, how we might, watch it.
Yeah.
And by all means, please do get in touch with your thoughts and your ideas. And
we might try stuff that doesn't work in terms of like the way that we record series, the way that we do bonus episodes and how they go together, all the stuff that we choose or how long it lasts. So I'm just getting that out there. And if that stuff goes wrong, then we'll try and course correct as we go along. But the foundation of it is that we're going to pick stuff that we enjoy, and we're going to try to just share that positivity and love with everybody. That's why, and I think doing Doctor Who's a great shout, partly because I think we talked about this. Unlikely to come back to it if we go on to like big films and it feels like the right time. I love switching up the format. I again am on the fence. I quite like, especially modern Doctor Who, because my kids were young and we used to watch it like week by week into the kind of end of the Matt Smith era. So I kind of feel like I'm in the same position as I was in the last series, which is cool. Alien I absolutely love. And then I feel like I've been trying to get Rob to watch Lord of the Rings with me at Christmas for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great.
I think it'll be interesting, really quickly just to talk about what each of us wants from the podcast. And what I mean by that is like, what is it to you? Because to me, I'm really excited about watching movies I haven't seen before. There's two strands. It's either watching something I haven't seen before and really enjoying it. And I think that you are both, great people to to find things that I would like that I haven't seen, and likewise to share something with you both that you haven't seen that I think you would really like. That's like my big kind of hope. The overarching thing for me from this podcast is like I really just want to watch movies and enjoy them.
That is it. That's the, when you're showing your friend the thing. And this is the last movie where you both very passive aggressively paused the film because I was looking at a message on my phone. Like, are you not enjoying it?
Yeah.
Get off your phone.
It doesn't matter whether you're enjoying it or not.
You've got to give the movie a chance.
There are rules about watching movies.
I thought it was an important message.
Yeah.
It was quite passive aggressive. What I would like to get out of it is very similar. Yes, all the time that we've worked together, the stuff I like is when we are engaging with something which we really like and it makes us have ideas and we want to talk about it, and then we get to talk about it and share it with a group of people who are responding and then forming a community around it. That is my just favorite thing, and it just kind of it amplifies the stuff I'm enjoying anyway, and then we get like enjoyment from the people and they're giving us comments and ideas that we wouldn't have had or recommendations that we wouldn't have had, and we're having like a nice chat. It's basically it's talking about things you're enjoying with your friends. That is it to me. And I do love, obviously you could do this without making a podcast, but the thing which I have found doing this job and working with you guys is that giving yourself a reason to do stuff just puts this structure and organization on it. So watching stuff from start to finish always makes you see it in a different way. And like I said, going back to revisiting stuff always makes me think more about stuff anyway. So I guess it's those three things: revisiting, watching stuff in order, sharing it with a group of people. That's what I'm looking forward to.
You anything to add to that, Rob? I think we've kind of covered all of it.
Yeah, I really enjoy, it's a very simple one for me. I enjoy answering the question, why? I think a lot of people, it's very easy to say, I love this film or I don't like that film, and really digging into the reasons why you like something. And it's not always apparent, even to yourself, why you like or dislike a thing until you really start to critically examine it. And I enjoy that process. I enjoy trying to dig out the whys of, it's so hard to know when you've made something that's good. I'm talking like from a filmmaker's point of view. Like you work for years on this thing. And you don't know whether it's good until it's made and it's out there and the audience reacts to it and the critics react to it. And like I find it fascinating just dissecting these films and trying to piece together why they've been made the way they have been made.
I do think the context is super important, and that's been a really nice thing, is adding context to films I already liked or didn't like, and understanding better. Everyone's trying to make something good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, at least the majority of people involved are trying to make something really good. They want things to succeed and be the best they can and be proud of them. And you owe it to them, I think, to understand the world they're working in and what they're up against. I'm sure making a movie is unbelievably difficult, and I have no idea how difficult it can be. And understanding at least some of the context around it is valuable and has definitely made me enjoy the movies we've watched a lot more, I think. So there we go. I guess we've kind of wrapped this up. We're going forwards. There's going to be a lot more Redshirt Cinema Club, and we really want you to be a part of it. So please do continue to listen freely on all your favourite podcast platforms. That means not one of them. You must listen on all platforms, including YouTube now, which will have launched by the time you are hearing this.
We're all frantically looking at each other.
Right, guys, that's what we agree.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
If you'd like to show your support, we now have a Patreon. There'll be a link to it probably somewhere in this description, I'd imagine. And if not, look on Patreon for Redshirt Cinema Club.
Did we say we're new to this?
It will definitely come up.
It's coming.
As Rob said, there's a tier there for like a tip jar, which will also include a newsletter, now named Civilian Observer. And if you would like to hear even more, there's a $5 level where we can promise you 2 extra episodes a month full of good things, and we'd love to hear from you. Make sure you're getting in touch. You can follow us and get in touch on Twitter. We are at Redshirt Cinema. You can also follow us individually if you'd like and talk to us there. You can also email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com, where, as I always say, there are tribbles and they'll read your things. So yeah, let us know what you're looking forward to, what you've enjoyed about the podcast, where you'd like to see it go next. We hope you've enjoyed this bonus episode, and I think all that's left to do is say, am I a Doctor Who fan yet? No. I'm not. But I hope to be. You've been listening to Redshirt Cinema Club. If you've enjoyed listening, rating and reviewing the podcast would really help us out. We'll be back next Monday with another episode, and in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com, where a team of highly trained tribbles await your correspondence. See you next week.
Are you going to intro Dave for the last time?
Dave's still the captain.
Who knows? I could be the captain of the Nostromo too.
You know what happens to the captain of the Nostromo?
I saw Alien last week, so yes, I know very well what happens to the captain.
Which one's the captain?
Chris Christopherson.
Man with the beard.
Oh, the one in the air vent. Is that
Yes,
him?
yeah, that's him.
In the air vent.
Flamethrower man.
Where in the extended cut you get to see him in the nest at the end as well, still barely alive.
He's still barely alive.
He's there. He's like,
Don't tell me now.
oh, it's so good.
Save it. It's such a naughty little scare, that bit as well. Just the shot.
Oh God!
It's just really dark, and then
it's
they
right
lights up for a minute, and the alien's just there and goes, or whatever. It's just like, oh, yeah, let jazz hands. I'm going to eat you.
The bit at the end where you're like, those pipes look like the
Let's
alien.
not talk about this now. We can't be talking about this now. We've got to save this. Is good alien stuff.